Yes, hello everyone. Continuing on with the discussion, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the book that I wrote. Um, I'd like to point out that this is the first of a series of videos. And this particular video is a very broad overview. There's a lot of concepts in the book. Probably one might think too many for one book. But health is complicated. There's a lot of different factors, and I think it was very important to get them all in one place. I'd also like to point out that below this video, um, there is a link for you to go to so you can print out a PDF handout sheet in case you want to take notes. Okay, the reason why I thought about Paging Dr. Within as the title of the book, or the main title, is that there seems to be a doctor within each of us that does all it can to help us get better and stay better. And this doctor seems to create symptoms or signs to indicate something is wrong, much like the check engine light on your car. I'd like to go back to that previous slide, that this doctor inside knows everything that's going on, physically, mentally, and maybe spiritually. It's aware of every little bruise, every little foreign body that's invaded the body, and it just knows everything about the body, mind, and maybe the spirit. Okay, so anyway, about the symptoms and signs. Some of the symptoms could be pain. It could be upset stomach, or it could show up in the vital signs. There's a lot of different ways that the doctor, quote unquote doctor, lets or makes aware that something is wrong in the body, mind, and maybe spirit. Okay, so this is a subtitle of the book, and a patient listener and a super symptom checker. I abbreviate it as a PLSSC throughout the book. And again, I guess you can read probably just about everything here. But the big thing to remember here is that this concept considers the big picture around health and or symptoms. So here's a patient listener, which is very important. And if you combine that with a super symptom checker, which could be a human or technology or both, you really have a good way of diagnosing and treating what's really going on, not just treat the symptoms. As Sir William Osler had said, it's important to listen to your patient. He is telling you the diagnosis. And that is so crucial, I think. And that is something that I hear over and over again from patients and even myself. I get really irritated when a doctor interrupts me or puts words in my mouth or something of that nature, or just even doesn't even pay attention to what I say. I just think that's wrong. And so that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book. Anyway, in the book, I describe various ways of how a patient listener could be implemented, because a doctor just doesn't have the time or the ability, or maybe other reasons why they can't take into account what the patient has to say in detail. And the concept here is that something or someone could listen to the patient at length. And it could take quite some time. It could go around in circles. And but the goal is to achieve a summary. And this would include not only medical history and symptoms, but what else is going on in their lives. Anyway, to give that information to the doctor, and even the patient, because sometimes once a patient is aware of what else is going on in their lives, they can correct it themselves. So anyway, here's kind of an illustration that shows something or someone could listen at detail and then summarize it, going around and around to make sure that the patient is satisfied with what the summary has to say. Okay. Okay, so here's a patient story. A patient goes to the doctor typically when they got symptoms. Something hurts. There's blood someplace where there shouldn't be blood, or a variety of other reasons why a patient goes to the doctor. But I think what's very important is what else is going on around the patient, the environment. As an example, a patient goes in with an upset stomach, and after hearing what else is going on in the patient's life, it's realized that the patient is under a lot of stress. And maybe their spouse just died, or they're really having troubles at work. So I think it's important in diagnosing and treating to make sure you get the full story. Okay, now this might be obvious, but a symptom checker checks symptoms. And maybe doctors might not like to be compared to a symptom checker, but really, that's why patients go to doctors. They have something that's not right, and they'd like the doctor to check it. And the same goes with online searching. I just did it the other day. I had some spots on my skin, and I just checked it out briefly. And now I know a little bit more about it. And when I see my doctor in a month or so, I'm going to mention it and see if it's the right thing. It doesn't sound like a big problem. And I'm not looking for problems either. Okay, so here we talk about the super symptom checker. Someone or something that monitors all the health determinants, not only the vitals, but what else is going on. We have that capability today with all this technology. So, and it could be done 24 hours a day for 7 days a week. In other words, all the time, continuous. And then this information would be evaluated by a symptom checker of some sort. And if the patient or user desires, there could be coaching, like as an example. Like what the coaching or a coach might say is, Tom, it looks like you're really stressed right now. Why don't you take a few breaths and try and get your composure back? I think you'd be better able to handle that, because you're under a lot of stress right now. Okay, so here's the super symptom checker technology. We've got a lot of smart watches and smart rings and all kinds of smart wearables. And this information could go back and forth to a smartphone and for further processing. And then again, it could go back and forth to the cloud or artificial intelligence, which would give information to the user or the patient, and maybe some coaching too, who knows. And if the patient or user desires, this information could be passed along to their own personal doctors for further evaluation or just monitoring. So it's quite a technology that's a lot different than what we have now, but yet it's building on technology that we have today. This isn't futuristic stuff. This is real-time things that we could use, just piece them together to make a system instead of isolated devices or isolated apps. Okay, so we talked about what else is going on in the diagnosis and treatment. Well, yeah, there is the body, mind, and spirit. And then that all symptoms and all maladies, I don't care what. Oh yeah, by the way, I should say that I'm not a healthcare professional, but I've been around a long time, and I've been around illnesses and sicknesses all my life. And by the school of hard knocks, I've had to learn a lot about health and healthcare. And from what I see is that every symptom and every malady has a physical component, a mental component, an emotional component, and maybe a spiritual component. And this 360-degree diagnosis and treatment is ever evolving. I think that there is no such thing as a one and done diagnosis and treatment. It varies. It varies as someone gets older. It varies depending on the multitude of medications they might be taking. It might be what's going on in their lives. So it's important to look at the ever-evolving diagnosis and treatment for best results. Okay, so as I said in one of the first slides, this is a very broad overview, like a bird's eye view from up in space. Okay, so yeah, my plans are to do more of these videos, going into each chapter, and I might do some special topics later on. The goals of my book, to provide building blocks of how to make and use an affordable, consumer available, over-the-counter PLSSC, to start talking about how to provide information and tools for people to get better and stay better, going to healthcare professionals only as needed or wanted. In other words, to give more to the patients so they can manage their own health, instead of just bits and pieces from various doctors. And a lot of times the doctors don't talk to one another, and it's just confusing for a patient. And I don't like that. I'd like to know the big picture. So, and then here's something that I've got on my bucket list, is to interface with the doctor within. More to come with that. I'll probably talk about that in a special topic video. Okay, the first chapter of the book is called an introduction. Makes sense, I guess. Anyway, it could be most beneficial to chronic or people who really want to get better and stay better. It's probably not of much interest to patients who just want to treat the symptoms or not put forth much effort. It could be used to benefit healthcare consumers, providing more tools and information. Doctors, as I said earlier, and healthcare professionals, where you get good information, good summary information, as well as historical data. That's very important in diagnosing and treating. To get the historical, and that could be done by continuously monitoring. It would also help the parents and caregivers of a sick loved one. Health insurance, because insurance probably doesn't like to pay out too much. They just as soon keep what they got, I guess. So that would help. And society as a whole. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in a world yet to come, that people will gravitate towards getting better and staying better. So, and then there's people who, like me, are health medical innovators, inventors, and maybe I go in the area of science fiction. Who knows? Okay, so chapter 1 talks about what affects health symptoms, and the flip side of that is what determines health. And in that first chapter, I didn't make up the health determinants. They come from various government organizations and experts who have determined what all determines health or the quality of health. And some of those, just off the top of my head, might be air quality, water quality, socialization is one. Like a person who is lonely, or a person who's depressed, that all affects their prognosis. So anyway, okay. So that's what chapter 1 talks about. And it's a start list of what inputs could be included in a super symptom checker. Chapter 2 looks at the bigger picture, just like I talked about earlier. I'm probably not going to say much about that other than what I just said. Chapter 3, I think, is very, 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 very important. There's a special chapter on stress. Stress can cause all kinds of nasty things. Negative stress, I should say. Positive stress gives us hope, gives us dreams, and motivates us. Negative stress, no, not so much. I was surprised in this recent pandemic when healthcare professionals and health organizations didn't advise people on how they could improve or maintain their immune system by decreasing their stress. It just baffled me. But anyway, that's enough of that. Chapter 4 talks about a patient listener. And we talked a little bit about, I gave a couple of slides on that earlier. Chapter 5, there has been symptom checkers for a long time. Now, this is kind of a funny slide. I found this, I think it's in 1942, or anyway, way back, where somebody was diagnosing over the radio. And this is a science fiction article, but I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to include that. Because there are, it kind of shows to me that there are dreamers like me. Oh yeah, by the way, I guess I was around in the 40s, but I was too young then. Chapter 6 gives some ideas what a super symptom checker might look like, features and appearance. Could be all kinds of gadgetry. could be artificial intelligence, or as I said earlier, there might be some way that we can access the doctor within in years to come. Chapter 7 gives more ideas on what inputs could be added to the super symptom checker. Chapter 8 is a special chapter on finding out what makes a patient tick. This is probably the most controversial chapter in the book because it talks about let's see, how can I say this? It talks about how the patient or user could get to know themselves better, and also helps the doctor providing that missing link in diagnosing and treating a person. And here we talk about here, I don't know if you can see the pictures here very well, but feeling, emotions, habits, belief systems, like I don't know, well, certain ethnic groups want to be treated differently. So I think that's all important in diagnosing and treating as a person, not just one of many. To make it a personalized healthcare is what I strive for in this book. Chapter 9 gives some ideas of what outputs could be from the super symptom checker. Chapter 10 gives a framework for a person. And of course, I hear a female, but it could be a male. But there's the picture of some medical students. I think medical training needs to be revised to take into account the current technology. So, but that's my opinion. And I give you in chapter 10 my opinion of how it could be improved. Chapter 11 shows how to make the PLSSC. As I said earlier, some smart devices, artificial intelligence, and how those combine together. Chapter 12 gives some insights on how implementation could occur. So, yeah, well, I think I got this slide somewhere, or this image somewhere, that it really says that if you think you can, or something like that. I think Henry Ford had a saying like that. What is it? I think it's something like, and please don't quote me, but if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. So, but that's what I give in this book. Navigation through all the ups and downs and pitfalls and getting funding and all that kind of stuff. And it may be that this book is just science fiction, but it's there for those interested. Chapter 13 is the conclusion of the book, putting it all together, all the various concepts all over the place, making an effort to make sense of this book. The appendix, there I did tons of research for this book, and each chapter has references and search strings so you can find more. So be sure and check out each chapter's references that support either positive or negative. And these are the references from people who are experts, and some maybe not experts, but But still, it's information that should be considered. That's much like listening to the patient's whole story, or just listening to a person, active listening. Maybe you could view these chapter references as active listening. Some of those things you might agree with, some you don't. Anyway, okay. That's about it on that one. Lastly, okay. So this PLSSC will do as much or as little as the user allows. And this goes for any patient or doctor situation. The doctor does its best, and some patients like to have more help, and some patients say, no, I don't want to do that, or I'm just interested in this, but I'm not going to do that. And so it's entirely up to the patient or user. Fully programmable. There's, I'm sure there's an off button, or just even the voice command of bug off. When the PLSSC might be coaching somebody, and the user patient gets tired of hearing that, so it just tells the device or system to stop. Okay. So again, if the patient desires it, or it'll give the full treatment, the full picture diagnosis and treatment. And this is an important thing that I think I wanted to include. This concept will continue to work with a patient and not give up until the patient says so. You won't hear words like, it's all in your head, or you're just going to have to live with it, or there's nothing more I can do for you. I don't like those words, especially if they just are abrupt and they don't give solutions. This concept, PLSSC, looks for solutions until the patient says not to. So it's an ever-evolving concept. Okay, well, I'm drawing to the end of this video. Our next video will be a broader overview of my book, going a slightly more detail in each chapter. Okay, well, stay tuned if you want. You can do this by subscribing to my YouTube channel if you want. So, okay, and here is where to get my book. That's going to be below the video too. So, okay, hope you like it. Hope you find it useful. If you got questions or comments, I've started some discussion groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, and I got a blog going. And you can also contact me via email. As I said earlier, I'm not a healthcare professional. But however, I do have an LLC. And it might look like there's a whole company behind me, but it's not. It's just me. Thank you for watching. And there's a picture of me looking off in the future. I see the future as being bright. And I'd like to thank those agencies and such that provided particularly the images for this video. And this video is for information only, and it's not medical advice. There's more disclaimers at my website. So thank you. I'll see you in the next one.